If the past year has convinced me of anything, it's that we're on the right track. Any concerns I had about the magnitude of the challenge we face have been soothed by the tremendous assets at our disposal, our many fine institutions, and the commitment of our political leaders to support the needed changes. We now have a plan in place to build a world-class system of higher education, one that will lead Ohio's economic recovery. It is Ohio's plan, drawing upon our unique strengths, and if we implement it wisely, it can light a path to a better Ohio for all of us. Thank you.
Now we would like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everybody, including guests. Holding the microphones today are Operations Assistant Mika Tadashi and Director of Development Jessica Leary Allen. And now for our first question, please.
The ideas that you mentioned. The first I heard you mention money was about, you said, a well-funded collaborative effort. And then you mentioned funding other things. Could you explain, it feels like a very naive question, but where is the money going to come from, and how does one decide which colleges and universities receive it?
Well, I'm going to let Mike Schwartz answer how we decide who gets the money. No, I'm just he would be able to have an opinion, I'm sure. Well, as I've mentioned, we've been blessed with the support of the governor and the General Assembly, not only with significant increases in funding this year, but also by being spared from budget cuts. And when budget cuts came, some of that increase went into the basic support for our institutions, which is what allowed us to freeze tuition for 2 years. By the way, we just came to the end of the first school year in which tuition was frozen. We have yet one more school year to go. And then the rest came in the form of the new initiatives that we spoke of. The Choose Ohio First Scholarship Program, the Ohio Research Scholars Program, and just this week now, the investment in internships and co-ops to enable us to advance our goal of keeping students here. So the truth of the matter is there's no magic to this. It's a question of prioritization. One of the reasons we are where we are in Ohio is that unfortunately, through some good times and bad, higher education was not as high a priority as it needed to be given its importance for the state's competitive role in the global economy. So we're blessed with that support. But the point I also made is that support cannot be endless. Our leaders can give us every dime in the state budget, forgetting all other needs, and it still wouldn't be enough to build the world-class institutions we need across the state. And therefore, we have to create our own success by directly, measurably contributing to the economic growth of this state. I would have to say that in general, we've talked we have historically talked about the role of higher education as drivers of the economy, but we have not been willing to be accountable and deliberative and specific about how we do that. And I think personally that's the most dramatic change that we are putting in place in the state of Ohio.
Eric, in your opening remarks, you mentioned one of your objectives was to eliminate duplication and waste. Could you give us some examples of what you've done in that area, and do you have any estimate how much money you've saved?
In the budget that was passed as a condition of the funding the funding increase we received, we conditioned Dr. Proenza, Dr. Schwartz, Dr. Nora, Dr. Thornton to, as a condition of their receiving the funds, they had to achieve in the first year 1% productivity gains across the board. This could be done individually or collaboratively, but we incentivized collaborative savings by counting them in a more favorable way, and 3% in the second year. We have the results of the first year in, and a goal that would have been in the range of $30 million or so has been exceeded by 6 or 7 times over. We're close to documenting about $200 million in efficiencies and savings in the first year. And of course, we expect more in the second year. But now let me make a confession, and that is that we picked the 1% number and the 3% number out of the blue because we didn't really have time to systematically identify what we think the opportunity for efficiency and savings was, because the governor, of course, had to introduce his budget right at the beginning of his term. And as it happens, I actually became chancellor the day before the budget was introduced. So we were scrambling a little bit. In our strategic plan, we are creating a continuous improvement process. I will be appointing a vice chancellor in charge of affordability and efficiency. The job of that division, of that work of our office, will be to identify the best practices across the system, to compare how much we are spending at each institution in different places for the same service, and then to insist that all institutions achieve the lowest cost productivity in particular areas. And from that process will be derived the targets for the next budget. So each budget will contain a productivity target each year, but the future targets will be arrived at through the development of a better understanding of what the actual opportunities are. There also, of course, is the need to target our resources into programs of excellence. In other words, not all of the question of efficiency is about saving money. Some of it surely is, so that we can invest that money back in the academic enterprise. But what we really want to do is build programs of excellence that can attract students and research and businesses from around the world and keep our students, our top students here. For that to happen, we cannot be competing against each other for the same scholars or the same students in the same field's endeavor. The unit of competition has to be Ohio against the nation or against the world. And that's why our process for having institutions identify the centers of excellence on which they're going to focus and identify the national and international benchmarks which they're going to meet, and our desire to fund those centers of excellence through competitive programs like the Research Scholars and the Choose Ohio First, is, in my judgment, as much a part of this collaboration and efficiency as is purchasing cooperatives and the other initiatives that we will undertake. Collectively, we will have centers of excellence that cover the range of things that our state and industries need in this competitive economy. If each institution on their own tried to build up all of that expertise, we could not possibly achieve what we can achieve collaboratively.